working for the Chinese government. We'll have more on that story. We can promise that. Bernie Sanders is on the brink of leading a socialist takeover, meanwhile, of the Democratic Party. How exactly did that happen? An FBI counterterror expert will explain how Marxist thought permeates the party. Next. Plus, the president's son is on the stage in Phoenix as part of a Trump rally. The president is taking the stage any minute.
They said 1,024th, maybe. And they looked around the table at each other. These are the leaders of her cabinet, the people who will maybe end up in her cabinet. And they said, less than 1/10 of 1%. And rather than just being, we're going to pretend that never happened, this is a win.
The desk phone from WeatherTech holds.
Voters are simply not being asked to vote, in part because of...
You and I have worked together the practical aspects of this, which is really hard.
Is a $60 billion plus enterprise. It's not something that one just picks up as you go along on the job. And really, his qualifications, he's currently the ambassador, so he has a little bit of experience in terms of being a consumer.
We're organizing to protect immigrants. We're organizing to combat climate change. We're organizing right here in Las Vegas, the site of the worst mass shooting in American history, so that we can take the fight to the NRA and end gun violence once and for all, and we will do that. As others have mentioned, we're already at 70,000 early voters here. And to give you some perspective, in 2016, 84,000 people turned out in total on caucus day. And folks, we're still 3 days out from caucus day, and this comes on the heels of record-breaking turnout a week ago in New Hampshire. So we're making sure that more people can participate in our democracy. Nevadans can register on the same day. Caucus materials, as the chair pointed out, in English, Spanish, and Tagalog. Democrats are organizing around the values of the American people. And every single one of our candidates shares those values. And every single one of those candidates would make a far better president than President Trump. And the American people think so too. The latest Quinnipiac poll from a week ago and a Washington Post poll from today shows that every single candidate on this stage would defeat Donald Trump in a head-to-head matchup, folks. That's why, folks, that's why no matter who makes it to the mountaintop, we will unite behind our eventual nominee. The Democratic Party is a family. Families often have spirited discussions. Come to my house at Thanksgiving. But you know what, folks? That's healthy. And when we take on Donald Trump, we know we will come together and do it together. Because our unity is indeed our greatest strength and his worst nightmare. And no, make no mistake about it though, this battle won't be easy. But whenever I feel myself getting tired or cynical, I think of all the people across this great state and this great country who are counting on us to succeed. I think about the workers I met in casino kitchens who are struggling to put food on the table for their families. I think about the homeowners that I met here in Nevada whose homes were foreclosed because predatory lenders made Nevada a foreclosure haven in America. Shame on them. I think about children like 9-year-old Adelida Reynoso, who was separated from her mother, Maria, at the border 2.5 years ago because of the bankrupt policies of this president. And she talks to her mom on FaceTime. She should be hugging her mom. And the first words she learned in English were, "They separated us. She deserves a better America." I think about the people.
Join now. Pay over time. 0%.
And is really unfair to the public, which needs to have confidence in the agency's work.
Yeah, I would just add that, like, I don't have any problem.
The 49ers.
Whoa, hold it.
I'm not just here to be the token female. I'm here to help us win. The Surface Pro helps me get what's in my head and get it out onto the field.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
I would want to.
Mike Bloomberg is surging in the Democratic race. He's blanketing daytime TV, all the judge shows with 30-second spots, as we told you. But still, Bernie Sanders does remain the favorite to win the Democratic nomination, according to betting markets and common sense. And this is a big change. For decades, it would have been unthinkable that America would elect a self-described socialist to high office. Henry Wallace probably the last. Now it seems inevitable that socialists will take control of the Democratic Party at some point. Most people didn't see this coming. How did it happen? Terry Turchi is a former FBI Deputy Director of Counterterrorism. He's got a new book called In Their Own Words, The Democratic Party's Push for Communist America. He joins us tonight. Terry, thanks a lot for coming on. So how did this happen? You say you're not surprised by this. Why?
Well, you had a good story on China, and it's a perfect lead-in. China, Cuba, Russia, all of them for decades have wanted to change and alter the perception of Americans about their system. That's what their intelligence services do. We talk about theft. What they really do is change attitudes. And you can look back over 5 or 6 decades, the 60s and 70s, to the Weather Underground terrorist organization, to the Black Panther Party for self-defense. Both described themselves as communist-minded men and women who wanted to overthrow the U.S. government. And they set forth a strategy, and the Weather Underground strategy is just about word for word what the Democrats are talking about today when they push socialism and democratic socialism. And that's what the In Their Own Words book does. It kind of walks you through and gives you a playbook to how this has happened, to how we are almost on the verge of incremental communism installed before we even know it. Everybody says no American's going to vote for a communist government. That's exactly true. They're not even knowing and realizing right now they're being sold socialism, but in the words of the radical Weather Underground and the words of the Democratic Party platform of 2016, which they call their most progressive ever, we're getting the same thing. And that's what's really frightening. That's why we wrote this book.
Interesting. So describe exactly what that means. What is the difference, would you say, between socialism and communism?
Well, of course, when you get into the intellectual argument, socialism is about the community kind of owning things. Communism is about essentially public ownership. But what I'm talking about here is what we saw on the street. This is what we learned years ago about what people really do and how this is affecting our country. And let's take the issue of race. In the Weather Underground's grand scheme of resistance, which is what they call their strategy, America was a terrible, terrible country. It was a country of systemic racism, of institutional racism. It was a country that we should be just sad and just taken aback by our history of slavery, and something we just couldn't outlive or outgrow. What do you hear when you listen to Democratic Party candidates today? Systemic racism, institutional racism, the police are racist. Why did the Weather Underground choose racism? Well, for the same reason that the old KGB, the new SVR, and the Chinese intelligence services pushed the very idea that racism will divide America. They have believed that forever, and they believe it now. But now the difference is the Democratic Party is spreading the same thing. They have literally gotten their hands around the words, the actions, and the policies of Soviet and Russian-style communism and Chinese-style communism. And I guarantee you that's where they're going. You can look at these words, and whether it's the Democratic Socialists of America or the Communist Party of the USA. I'll give you another example. Barack Obama talked about the fundamental transformation of America. Huey Newton, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party, in 1970 in a speech at Boston College, talked about the total transformation of America.
Well, that's what they're certainly trying to transform America, and they're promoting race hatred along the way, obviously. Terry Turchi, congrats on the book. Thanks for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tucker.
Rod Blagojevich, the former Illinois governor, out of prison after 8 or 9 years. His first public remarks since his sentence was commuted by the president. That's
cases. These are some Super Tuesday state polls that have come out.
Imagine the most exciting woman you ever met choosing.
cold in Arkansas, but Bloomberg ahead in Arkansas, actually. Oklahoma, this one came out yesterday. Bloomberg up 6 there. However, California, biggest prize on Super Tuesday. Sanders, again, his campaign talking about an advantage they think they have with Hispanic voters. That could be a big reason for Sanders' lead there in California. But Bloomberg, you see that spending has put him in contention in a bunch of these Super Tuesday states. I think this one last poll item I can show you, though, is key, though. In our NBC Wall Street Journal poll, we asked voters, Democratic voters, if it's just Sanders and Bloomberg, and you gotta choose right now, Sanders 57, Bloomberg 37. So that theory right now of Bloomberg getting the one-on-one and winning, not yet.
I'm also like just imagining sociologically the number of people who don't fit into that, because 57 plus 37 is not 100. There are some people in America who are like, yeah, between Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, I can't decide. Like, that's just hard to believe, you know what I mean? Like, among all the 2 people in the world, you'd think that that would be a polarizing choice. We believe the candidates are about to get announced here in just a moment, and we'll pause when that happens to see them come out onto the stage. You see Senator Klobuchar there, Mayor Buttigieg. Let's watch this. Senator Amy Klobuchar, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg. These 6 contenders who are about to take their positions at the podium tonight. This is the first time we've seen Mayor Bloomberg on the stage at all. The polling questions around Bloomberg are big black boxes because they reflect the amazing amount of money that he has spent, but this will be the first time he competes in the flesh with these other contenders. Robert Gibbs, let me ask you about the speech that we just heard from the Democratic Party chairman, Tom Perez. Organize, 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 talking about that being the secret to the success of the Democratic Party in terms of lining up a Democratic congressional delegation in that state. Right. But he's saying that's also the key to the Democrats winning in 2020. How do you assess the organizing capability of the Democratic Party right now?
Well, let's hope that they're counting votes on Saturday and not into next week, and I think that will give us some indication. But look, if you look at the campaigns that Harry Reid ran, focused on the early vote, making sure you identify who you need to get out and get them out quickly. Mark them off as having voted. And look, this is a great opportunity for the campaigns to hone their messaging and their operations, because as we've talked about this increase in Hispanic vote that is happening now that we haven't seen in 2 90-plus white states, understand too, the 2 biggest prizes on Super Tuesday, California and Texas, are going to have electorates in excess of 30% that are Hispanic. And so understanding how to talk to, energize, activate, and get those voters to the polls is a huge task, Herculean for these candidates, and it's a great proving ground because, as both Harry Reid emphasized, it looks a lot more like America than the first 2 states.
And the Sanders campaign very confident with their standing with voters of color. Do any of you see any particular skill, any particular deftness when it comes to any of these candidates who are on the stage tonight in terms of speaking to Latino and African American voters?
No,
any
not
of
at
them?
all. No, none.
Are you sure?
No. I want to be abundantly clear. Not at all, under any circumstances, are any of them really good. And most of them have excruciatingly problematic records on certain issues that have to do with black voters. But I would say that Sanders' success with Latinos is in large part because the Latino population is also very young. And a lot of the voting population is young, and he's very popular with young people.
Well, and you've also got a really strong generational divide within African American voters that is not so much true with Latino voters, where older African American voters, it's not about passion, it's about beating Donald Trump. But for younger Black and Latino voters, Sanders does represent a real movement to them. And it is genuine. It's just that it seems to be a bit age limited. So the question for him is, can he expand this really, passionate, young, multiracial base upward in age to the people who actually are reliable.
Particularly given that even, with the varying turnout numbers that we've seen, it's an older electorate that is turning out. Right. We have not seen a spike in young turnout. Claire, in terms of thinking about how these candidates are looking at each other and sizing each other up, tonight. Is there a way that any of them can succeed without destroying one of the other one? Is there a way that I mean, you've seen Senator Warren try to do that a few times, saying, I'm not going to go after X, Y, or Z. I'm instead going to talk about something we'd all be better at. You saw Tom Steyer do that a few times.
Yeah, you see Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was in the progressive lane, but then she tried to start to get to the middle a little bit and kind of got stuck. And so you've got Bernie over here with the progressive wing, the younger progressive wing, kind of locked down. And everyone else is splitting up everything else. So the irony is they need to get along and coalesce unless Bernie's going to be the nominee. I mean, that's kind of the option here, one or the other. And so I think politics is going to play out like it always does. Whoever's ahead is going to get some incoming. And I think Bloomberg is going to get it because it's his first time out and they want to kill him now. And I think Bernie will get a little incoming tonight.
But this is a huge, huge moment. This really is a moment where each of these campaigns has to say, I have to make my momentum tonight.
Yes.
Because let's be clear.
Every single one of them.
Let's be clear. A series of third place finishes isn't going to make you the nominee. No. But let's be clear. Neither is a series of second place finishes.
Yes.
Right? There is one medal winner in this whole thing.
That's right.
And these campaigns each have to go in here with a strategy. How am I going to come out tonight, gaining that momentum, capturing that undecided vote, taking that into South Carolina and on to Super Tuesday? It's a big, big moment.
And Super Tuesday is a lot different this year for a very big reason. It's called California.
Right.
And California moving into Super Tuesday.
California and Texas
everything.
being on the same day is
huge.
unimaginable.
It's a third of all the delegates.
I'd love to see a Texas poll because that also is delegate rich and very, very important. High Latina population.
But if that California poll, now that's not how California is going to end up. But you have to be at 15% to be viable.
That's right.
If that poll were the outcome, Bernie Sanders would walk away with 416 pledged delegates that night. Because nobody else is at 15%.
And then game over.
That's again, there's campaigns tonight that are looking at both sides of this. They can't let Bernie go. They can't let Bloomberg go.
And I think the other thing that's important tonight is I still think these people have an opportunity to sort of sell themselves to the public. I don't buy this narrative that there's this liberal wing and there's this moderate wing. Mike Bloomberg is not a moderate. He's a conservative Democrat now. And I don't think most people really believe
a Rockefeller Republican.
Or a Rockefeller Republican until 15 minutes ago. I think the people who support Mayor Pete, they actually support Mayor Pete. It's not just because they're unhappy with Biden. The people who support Elizabeth Warren, they really still like her. So these people are all working from actual basis of support. No one has become the anti-Bernie candidate yet, and I don't think they should give up and just say, I'm the moderate choice yet. They've still got a group of people passionate about them that they can work for.
Ultimately, what they've all got to be is the anti-Trump candidate.
Right.
And I will say, it is striking to see, we're going to see a fight tonight over whose policy that is roughly in agreement with everybody else's policy is more appropriately means tested to the third decade, Meanwhile, Donald Trump is dismantling the rule of law. And so you will see, that'll also be a contest tonight. And I think Bloomberg has helped focus the field on this in terms of who can turn their fire toward Trump in a way that is going to move Democratic voters.
And are we going to see a candidate that shows empathy, decency, inspiration, right? Bill Clinton and Barack Obama inspired. They need a candidate to get out of the seats for.
The Democratic candidates debate in Las Vegas begins right now.
Let us create the political revolution this country needs.
The stakes could not be higher. We cannot afford to miss the mark or to miss this moment.
I will bring this country together instead of tearing it apart.
I can't do it alone. I need your help to climb that mountain. And together we're going to beat Donald Trump.
2020 is our time to change who makes the rules.
I am running to restore honor to our government and build a country that we can be proud of.
From NBC News, the Democratic presidential debate, live from Las Vegas, Nevada.
To Las Vegas. Everything is on the line tonight with just 3 days before the critical Nevada caucuses. Here with me on the stage tonight, NBC News political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. And NBC News chief White House correspondent and MSNBC anchor, Hallie Jackson. Also joining us is Telemundo senior correspondent Vanessa Ock. And editor of the Nevada Independent, John Ralston, who has covered Nevada politics for more than 3 decades. The rules are this tonight. Candidates will get 1:15 to answer each question and 45 seconds for follow-ups. Now that the stage is narrowed to 6 candidates, we encourage each of you to directly engage with each other on the issues. So let's get to our first question. Since the last time you all shared the stage, Senator Sanders, a self-described Democratic socialist, has surged into the lead nationally in the Democratic race. And there's a new person on the stage tonight, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, a former Republican who spent millions of his own dollars to run in this race. What hasn't changed, a majority of Democratic voters still say their top priority is beating President Trump. Senator Sanders, the first question to you. Mayor Bloomberg is pitching himself as a centrist who says he's best positioned to win in November. Why is your revolution a better bet?
In order to beat Donald Trump, we're going to need the largest voter turnout in the history of the United States. Mr. Bloomberg had policies in New York City of stop and frisk, which went after African American and Latino people in an outrageous way. That is not a way you're going to grow voter turnout. What our movement is about is bringing working class people together, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, around an agenda that works for all of us and not just the billionaire class. And that agenda says that maybe, just maybe, we should join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to all people as a human right, raise that minimum wage to a living wage of $15 an hour, and have the guts to take on the fossil fuel industry, because their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet and the need to combat climate change. Those are some of the reasons we have the strongest campaign to defeat Donald Trump.
So Mayor Bloomberg, can Senator Sanders beat President Trump, and how do you want to respond to what else he said?
I don't think there's any chance of the senator beating President Trump. You don't start out by saying, I've got 160 million people, I'm going to take away the insurance plan that they love. That's just not a ways that you go and start building the coalition that the Sanders camp thinks that they can do. I don't think there's any chance whatsoever. And if he goes and is the candidate, we will have Donald Trump for another 4 years, and we can't stand that.
So I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg. Democrats are not going to win if we have a nominee who has a history of hiding his tax returns, of harassing women, and of supporting racist policies like redlining and stop and frisk. Look, I'll support whoever the Democratic nominee is, but understand this. Democrats take a huge risk if we just substitute one arrogant billionaire for another. This country has worked for the rich for a long time and left everyone else in the dirt. It is time to have a president who will be on the side of working families and be willing to get out there and fight for them. That is why I am in this race, and that is how I will beat Donald Trump.
Senator Klobuchar, what do you think the path is from this stage to the White House? What works?
I think the path is a high voter turnout. I'm the one on this stage that had the highest voter turnout of any state in the country when I led the ticket, as well as bringing in rural and suburban voters. And I've done that as well. And I'm the only one with the receipts to have done that in Republican congressional districts over and over again. But I want to say this, I actually welcomed Mayor Bloomberg to the stage. I thought that he shouldn't be hiding behind his TV ads, and so I was all ready for this big day. And then I looked at the memo from his campaign staff this morning, and it said that he actually thought that 3 of us should get out of the way. That is what his campaign said, because we should pave the way for him to become the nominee. I have been told as as a woman, as someone that maybe no one thought was still going to be standing up on this stage, but I am because of pure grit and because of the people out there. I've been told many times to wait my turn and to step aside. And I'm not going to do that now, and I'm not going to do that because a campaign memo from Mayor Bloomberg said this morning that the only way that we get a nominee is if we step aside for him. I think we need something different than Donald Trump. I don't think you look at Donald Trump and say we need someone richer in the White House.
Thank you. Mayor Bloomberg, is a lot for you to respond to there, so here's your opportunity.
I think we have two questions to face tonight. One is, who can beat Donald Trump? And number two, who can do the job if they get into the White House? And I would argue that I am the candidate that can do exactly both of those things. I'm a New Yorker. I know how to take on an arrogant con man like Donald Trump that comes from New York. I'm a mayor, or was a mayor. I know how to run a complicated city, the biggest, most diverse city in this country. I'm a manager. I knew what to do after 9/11 and brought the city back stronger than ever. And I'm a philanthropist who didn't inherit his money, but made his money. And I'm spending that money to get rid of Donald Trump, the worst president we have ever had. And if I can get that done, it will be a great contribution to America and to my kids.
Vice President Biden, let you weigh in here.
In terms of who can beat Donald Trump, NBC did a poll yesterday. It says Joe Biden is best equipped to beat Donald Trump. That's what your poll said. And it said that I can beat him in those toss-up states, too, those states we have to win. I'm ahead by 8 points across the board. So in terms of being able to beat Donald Trump, I'm better positioned, according to your poll, than anybody else to beat Donald Trump. Number one. Number two, the mayor makes an interesting point. The mayor says that he has a great record, that he's done these wonderful things. Well, the fact of the matter is he has not managed his city very, very well when he was there. He didn't get a whole lot done. He had stop and frisk, throwing close to 5 million young black men up against the wall. And when we came along in our administration, President Obama, and said we're going to send in a mediator to stop it, he said that's unnecessary. So we're going to get a chance to talk about the mayor's record. But in terms of who is best prepared to beat Donald Trump, look at your poll and what it says.
Mayor Buttigieg, you'd like to weigh in?
Yes, we've got to wake up as a party. We could wake up 2 weeks from today, the day after Super Tuesday, and the only candidates left standing will be Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, the two most polarizing figures on this stage. And most Americans don't see where they fit if they've got to choose between a socialist who thinks that capitalism is the root of all evil and a billionaire who thinks that money ought to be the root of all power. Let's put forward somebody who actually lives and works in a middle-class neighborhood in an industrial Midwestern city. Let's put forward somebody who's actually a Democrat. Look, we shouldn't have to choose between one candidate who wants to burn this party down and another candidate who wants to buy this party out. We can do better.
Senator Sanders, are you polarizing?
If speaking to the needs and the pain of a long-neglected working class is polarizing, I think you got the wrong word. What we are trying finally to do is to give a voice to people who after 45 years of work are not making a nickel more than they did 45 years ago. We are giving a voice to people who are saying we are sick and tired of billionaires like Mr. Bloomberg seeing huge expansions of their wealth while 500,000 people sleep out on the street tonight. And that's so what we are saying, Pete, is maybe it's a time for the working class of this country to have a little bit of power in Washington rather than your billionaire campaign contributors.
All right, look, first of all,
I know.
Look, my campaign is fueled by hundreds of thousands of contributors.
Including 26 billionaires.
Among the hundreds of thousands of contributors. And look,
we've got to unite this country to deal with these issues. You're not the only one who cares about the working class. Most Americans believe we need to empower workers. As a matter of fact, you're the one who is at war with the culinary union right here in Las Vegas. We
have more union support than you have ever dreamed of. We have the support of unions all across this country.
But the vision I'm putting forward has the support of the American people. Really? We can actually deliver health care without taking it away from anyone. We can actually empower workers and lift wages without further polarizing this country. And we can build a movement without having legions of our supporters online and in person.
All right, candidates, thank you.
I think it is
Democratic figures, union leaders alike.
Senator Warren, I have a question for you. On Sunday, on Meet the Press, Vice President Biden accused Senator Sanders' supporters of bullying union leaders here with, quote, vicious, malicious, misogynistic things. You said Democrats cannot build an inclusive party on a foundation of hate. Are Senator Sanders and his supporters making it harder for Democrats to unify in November?
Look, I have said many times before, we are all responsible for our supporters, and we need to step up. That's what leadership is all about. But the way we are going to lead this country and beat Donald Trump is going to be with a candidate who has rock-solid values and who actually gets something done. When Mayor Bloomberg was busy blaming African Americans and Latinos for the housing crash of 2008, I was right here in Las Vegas, literally just a few blocks down the street, holding hearings on the banks that were taking away homes from millions of families. That's when I met Mr. Estrada, one of your neighbors. He came in to testify, and he said he thought he'd done everything right with Wells Fargo. But what had happened? They took away his house in a matter of weeks. This man stood there and cried while he talked about what it was like to tell his two little daughters that they might not be in their elementary school, that they might be living out of their van. I spent the next years making sure that would never happen again. Wall Street fought us every inch of the way on a consumer agency. They lost, and I won. We need a candidate with unshakable values and a candidate who can actually get something done for working people.
Thank you, Senator.
That's why I'm in this race,
Senator,
and that's how I'll beat Donald Trump.
Senator Sanders.
We have over 10.6 million people on Twitter and 99.
That's what it's about.
All right, well, clearly everybody's warmed up. We're going to take a short break and kick off the next hour with a topic many voters have said is top of mind, the climate crisis. We're back in a moment.
If you looked at America like a bird, and that was all you knew, would you...
CNN Tonight with Don Lemon.
And brutalize this guy.
Well, he's never withstood any of this pressure. He's just gone unscathed, having spent more than...
If most of these...
And we're going to have a new speaker. But that's why Martha has my complete and total support and endorsement, and we have to all get out there and make sure that Martha McSally, she's a warrior. Let me tell you, you don't know, we don't know, people don't know people. This one is tough as hell, and that's what we need. Martha McSally.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome back to the great state of Arizona. Let's give it up. I just want to say I have a message for the liberal hack media in the back. Arizona is going to vote in November to keep America great and send President Trump back to the White House. And Mr. President, I want you to know I was right there on the floor in that amazing State of the Union address that you gave. It brought tears to my eyes at many places. You were honoring our veterans. You were reuniting families. It was extraordinary. But I heard your call. You said to put a bill on your desk that's going to lower prescription drug prices, and I'm going to introduce a bill next week to get that done, to help all Americans lower the cost of drugs. Arizona is on fire thanks to the leadership of President Trump with Governor Doug Ducey and the Republicans in the Senate and the House. People are living amazing. We are getting people off the sidelines. The economy is doing so great. We have so much more to do, but there's so much at stake. My opponent said he would vote to convict and remove you from office and remove you from the 2020 ballot. What is that all about? And then he said last week that he would support Bernie Sanders if he's the nominee and his socialist agenda. So Arizona is tired of investigations. They're tired of obstruction. They don't want socialism. They love our freedoms. And Mark Kelly is flying on Bernie Sanders' wing, and I'm flying on your wing, President Trump, and we're going to win in November. God bless you all. Thank you.
EE Cafe Appliances at Mallanders. And Mallanders offers zero obstruction of justice, perjury, tax fraud, even bribery as part of the game. And it's only wrong if you get caught. Maybe. So, he grants clemency to about 36 people. And they have overwhelmingly been people with a direct line to the White House or who served as political chits. Carrick, Milken, Arpaio, D'Souza. What's the big difference between them and Trump? You know what the one thing is? Trump can't be prosecuted, at least not right now. In fact, his party has made it clear he can do whatever he wants. So, is someone guilty of normalizing the abnormal? Yes, but it's not Trump. It's the GOP. Here's Exhibit A.
I'm saying, Mr. President, the phone call was okay with me.
Exhibit B.
You really think he was serious about thinking that China's going to investigate the Biden family?
Exhibit C.
Because Russia interfered, the media pretends nobody else did.
All the main GOPers are willing to blame the scrutiny of Trump on anything but the obvious. Listen to this.
Because you just don't like the guy. You haven't liked him since November of 2016.
No, he's got it backwards. You guys are the ones who didn't like him back then. Cruz without the beard. Graham basically called Trump thoroughly corrupt when they were campaigning, and worse. Your whole field and their elected friends called him a cheat and a fraud and promised that Donald Trump would bring disrespect to the office. So what changed? Trump hasn't. Not a bit. What changed is the party is now feeding off the teat of fealty. I argue the GOP is no longer grand. The mighty pachyderm is packing it in. In fact, Trump is not a member of the GOP. You are all now part of the Trump organization. You sound more like representatives of his failed casinos than people elected to check his power. That is my argument. Thank you very much for watching. It is time now for CNN Tonight.
Unemployment has reached its lowest rate.
Reinstate all of the elimination of what Trump has eliminated in terms of EPA. I would secondly make sure that we had 500,000 new charging stations in every new highway we built in the United States of America or repaired. I would make sure that we once again made sure that we got the mileage standards back up, which would have saved over 12 billion barrels of oil had he not walked away from it. And I would invest in rail. Rail can take hundreds of thousands, millions of cars off the road if we have high-speed rail.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I want to get
common ground, and that's what we want in a president, Elizabeth. We don't want someone that looks at just plans.
Senator, thank you. We need to take another break here. We'll return to the Paris, Las Vegas in just a moment.
Her husband's a professional. Her husband said, you know, you better go to Michigan. Because I was there and they got a Trump-Pence sign on every lawn I've never seen. And you better go to Wisconsin, Hillary. you better go to Wisconsin. She said, no, we haven't lost Wisconsin in 36 years. No, Hillary, you got to go there. I'm telling you, I don't like what I said. No, what do you know? You know, he's a professional politician. She wasn't. It's one of those little problems in life. So then it came in. And then we won South Carolina. We won North Carolina, right? And we were leading Pennsylvania by so much that if I lost, remember, 2% of the vote left. If I lost every single vote, I win by a lot. They refused, the fake news refused to call it. I kept saying, we won Pennsylvania, why don't they call it? It was very late in the evening when they called it, because they're fake, they're crooked, they're fake. And I said, why don't they call Pennsylvania? But some beautiful things happened. And by the way, Ohio, we won by one of the largest margins ever. The great, great, great state of Ohio. Remember?
The economy was so great at the end of Obama's term in 2016. Why didn't Hillary run on the economy, and why didn't Hillary win on the economy? All right, gentlemen, thanks so much. And what about the health debate? Well, the health debate, what are we talking about? Well, it is brewing between Bloomberg and Bernie. Plus, I fact-checked the lie that President Obama, as I've been saying, has been talking about this now for years. My angle, if we can get to it with all this.
On MSNBC.
Prescription eyewear.
British TV ever. Start a free trial today.
At BMW, we didn't make just one. And I'll tell you, maybe bigger than even the tax cuts, and I did it sooner, were the regulation cuts. We freed up our nation to go back to work. So then we won Wisconsin. And then we won Michigan because
she just braved a career change, and now she needs the
beds is the best time to upgrade a new power bed or huge king you have always wanted. Hurry it.
Rival bartenders mixing things up.
And call 844-214-2424.
Who truly understood that force should be the very last resort.
These are Arby's. To show their prices, those same prices fall very fast. We've approved a record number of affordable new generic drugs, which are just as good as the brand drugs, but they cost a tiny fraction. We've totally transformed veterans' health care, including getting long-sought VA choice and VA accountability, which they said could not be done.
Fitness, the judgment-free zone.
Join Planet Fitness for only 25 cents down.
Is always free. Anytime, anywhere.
I dropped ya.
It's really dark down here. Oh, there's some change down here, too.
Don't let this happen to you. With removable cups, the WeatherTech Cup Phone fits virtually any size.
It's everything that I felt.
Hey, this is Selena Gomez. Watch my videos and so much more with Music Choice.
Download the Music Choice app and log in with your TV provider username and password.
Welcome back to Las Vegas and the Democratic presidential debate. To kick off our next round of questioning, here's Hallie.
Mayor Buttigieg, to you. In 2018, Mayor Bloomberg was the biggest outside spender, helping Democrats running for Congress. He's also donated billions towards causes like climate change, gun safety, education. If his money wasn't a problem then, why is it a problem now?
Oh, I think he should absolutely be doing everything in his power to defeat Donald Trump. I just don't think that has to result in him becoming the president of the United States. Look, our party has values. We were built around values like making sure we protect working people. But Mayor Bloomberg opposed raising the minimum wage. Our party has a tradition that includes excellent presidents like Barack Obama, who Mayor Bloomberg opposed. At the end of the day, it's not just about how much money you've got. It's what you stand for. And we are living at a moment when Americans are so deeply frustrated with the way that both Wall Street and Washington seem to have overlooked our lives. You know, the view from the porch of my one house in Indiana is that they can't even see us sometimes. And if we're going into the election of our lives against a president who rose to power by cynically exploiting the frustration of ordinary Americans feeling like leaders weren't speaking to them, then I think that turning to someone like Mayor Bloomberg, who thinks he can buy this election, is no better a way to succeed than turning to somebody like Senator Sanders, who wants to burn the House down.
Mr. Vice President.
You know, if you excuse a point of perkins on the second ballot. So I think that the will of the people should prevail, yes.
Thank you, guys.
Most votes should become the nominee.
5 no's and a yes. We are not done yet. We're back with more from Las Vegas after a short break.
As I was walking a ribbon of highway, I saw above me an endless skyway. I saw below me
Beyond all maps, where no one's been,
this land was made for you and me.
there is a place we could be free. Rated PG.
Fun fact, 1 in 4 of us millennials have debt we might die with. And most of that debt is actually from credit cards. It's just not right. But with SoFi, you can get your credit cards right by consolidating your credit card debt into one monthly payment. You can get your interest rate right by locking in a fixed low rate today. And you can get your money right with SoFi. Check your rate in 2 minutes or less. Get a no-fee personal loan up to $100K.
So you want to be president? My podcast is about what it takes to get the nomination. 6 episodes, 6 timeless themes that separate the few winners from the many losers.
So You Want to Be President with Chris Matthews. Episode 5 available now.
At Bissell, we love
That's why I created my new Giza Dream.
The if you can call it.
But I don't want you going to your great governor. He's a great governor, Doug Ducey. I don't want you going to your governor saying, Governor, Governor, we just can't stand winning so much. Please go see the
change business in America. T-Mobile has the first and only
winning. It's too much, Governor. It's not even fair to the rest of the planet. Please tell him, Governor Ducey, please tell him. President, the people of Arizona have won too much. We don't want to keep on winning. And I'll look at Doug Ducey, and I'll say, Doug,
you can do it faster. Plus, get a second.
That's embedded in this book. I mean, what? Give us the.
I've been dreaming about it all day.
Adventures await you.
So I thought, why not help somebody else? I love the kid that I matched with because he reminds.
Fact is, we are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. America is thriving like never before. And ladies and gentlemen of Arizona, the best is yet to come.
Let's get something straight. These people.
How can your phone help you make the most out of your tax return?
How far will you go to get what you want? Will you turn friends into...
Again, we will make America safe again, and we will make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Arizona. Thank you.
statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute, and we begin with Senator Klobuchar.
This has been quite a debate. And what I want everyone out there watching to remember is that what unites us is so much bigger than what divides us. And that we need a candidate that can bring people with her. Yes, a fired up Democratic base, but also independents and moderate Republicans. And I've done that every single time. I have won every race down to 4th grade. A lot of boasting up here, so I thought I'd add that. Secondly, you need someone who can govern, and I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat. And third, you need someone that has the heart to be the president. They were talking a lot about heart conditions up here. We have a president right now that doesn't have a heart. I love the people of this country, and I ask for the vote of the people of Nevada, because this state gets it. They get that maybe you don't agree with every single thing that's said on this debate stage, but we understand that the heart of America is bigger than any heart that God has in the White House. I ask you to join me at amyklobuchar.com. Thank you.
Mayor Bloomberg, to you.
Well, you can join me at MikeBloomberg.com too if you want, but I'm not asking for any money. Look, this is a management job, and Donald Trump's not a manager. This is a job where you have to build teams. He doesn't have a team, so he goes and makes decisions without knowing what's going on and the implications of what he does. We cannot run the railroad this way. This country has to pull together and understand that the people that we elect, and it's not just the President of the United States, they should have experience, they should have credentials, they should understand what they're doing and the implications thereof, and then we should, as a society, try to hold them accountable so the next time they go before the voters, if they haven't done the job, we shouldn't just say, oh, nice person, gives a good speech. We should say, didn't do the job, and you're out of here.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Mayor Buttigieg, 1 minute.
Nevada, I'm asking for your vote because America is running out of time, and this is our only chance to defeat Donald Trump. If you look at the choice between a revolution or the status quo, and you don't see where you fit in that picture, then join us. And yes, go to peteforamerica.com and help out, because we need to draw everybody that we can who believes that we need to empower workers, who believes in climate science, who believes in doing something about gun violence, and recognizes that the only way we can do this is to create a sense of belonging in this country that moves us out of the toxic and polarized moment that we are living in today. I already see an American majority ready to do these things. Now we have a responsibility to galvanize, not polarize, that majority. We cannot afford to lean on the same Washington playbook. We cannot afford to alienate half the country. We must step forward into the future in order to win and in order to govern a country that will be facing issues the likes of which we'd barely thought of just a few years ago. I'm asking you to join me so that we can deliver that future together.
I grew up fighting. I grew up out in Oklahoma, and I learned it probably from my mother. I watched when my daddy had a heart attack and didn't have any money coming in, when our car was lost and when we were on the edge of losing our home. I watched my mother fight to save our family. And I grew up fighting to save our family, my family. I eventually made it through school and spent my life as a teacher and looking into why it is that so many families across this country are struggling and why it gets worse year after year after year. I, for years, have fought for unions to say the way we're going to restructure this economy is we're going to make it easier to join a union and get more power into unions. To fight for students who have been cut out of opportunity over and over because of the rising cost of an education. Look, for me, I am, of all the people on this district, I've been a politician the shortest time, but I've been the one out fighting for families the longest time. I promise you this, give me a chance, I'll go to the White House and I'll fight for your family.
Thank you, Senator.
Vice President Biden. I'm running because so many people.
will clear the room and let Senator Biden, you have 1 minute.
Look, I'm running because so many people are being left behind. People I grew up with in Scranton. When my dad lost his job, lost his house, had to move. We moved to Claymont. We found ourselves in a position where we had little ability to get anything done. And my dad worked like hell. I learned a lot. I've been knocked down a whole hell of a lot. I know what it's like to be knocked down. But I know you have to get back up. We have to provide some safety and security for the American people. Right here in Nevada, the site of the most significant mass murder in American history, guns. Our kids are getting sent to school, having to hide under desks, learn how to run down corridors to avoid being shot. It's immoral. I'm the only one that's beaten the NRA nationally, and I beat them twice. With regard to health care, it also is something that is a right. Obamacare has to be expanded. It can be, in fact, cover everybody. And lastly, I think it's important that on day one, we deal with sending an immigration bill to the desk. The only person in here has the worst record on immigration is Bernie, because Bernie voted against the 2007 bill. Had, in fact, the immigration bill passed, there would be 6 million members would be now American citizens.
All right. Senator Sanders, you have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Unfortunately, RULAC, among other groups, Latino groups, saw that bill having provisions akin to slavery, Joe. But the bottom line is, all of us are united in defeating the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. That we agree on. But where we don't agree, I think, is why we are today the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. Why 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America when 500,000 people sleep out on the street. Why hundreds of thousands of bright young kids can't afford to go to college and 45 million remain in student debt. Bottom line here, real change never takes place from the top on down, never takes place from an oligarchy controlled by billionaires. We need to mobilize millions of people to stand up for justice. That's our campaign. Join us at BernieSanders.com. Thank you.
Senator, thank you. Folks, thank you. That concludes tonight's debate. Our thanks to my fellow moderators, to the candidates, and of course to all of you, the audience here and at home. The Nevada caucuses are this Saturday, with the South Carolina primary just 1 week later. Then the big prize, Super Tuesday on March 3rd. We'll be following it all for you. For now, for all of us at NBC News, I'm Lester Holt. Good day.
So begins our coverage. Brian Williams here with you in New York. 2 ways, of course, of looking at what just transpired on that stage in Las Vegas, Nevada. 6 people fighting for themselves, 6 people who over the course of 2 hours sometimes savaged each other. And at some point, someone on that stage is going to have to run against the incumbent president. Sometimes at the end of what we just saw, throwing in the old bromide, what brings us together is greater than what divides us, doesn't accurately depict what we just witnessed. We're here in New York. Nicole Wallace here with us, of course, former White House Communications Director, current host of Deadline White House, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, unless there's something I don't know. Claire McCaskill, former Democratic Senator from the state of Missouri.
Horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
The Warren campaign says that lines like that helped her have her best fundraising hour ever tonight, but it was Bernie Sanders who had Bloomberg's attention, arguing that Sanders is unelectable, and he called democratic socialism communism.
The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What did I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, House 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, House 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that. Where is your home? Which tax haven?
She had a very good debate, but I don't know that this means that we should count him, leave him for dead.
Andrew Yang, you know the field the best. You know what it's like on that stage. What was the read?
I think 3 things happened to Mike tonight. Number 1, he just found out he'd make the debate yesterday. there were 2 times when I wasn't sure if I was going to make the debate, and my team got me together to prepare. And you're really not sure if you're preparing because you're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be in this debate. So Mike, even though he was, I'm sure, getting coached and prepared, he was like, I don't know if I'm going to be in this debate. And so I don't think he was coached hard enough. Number 2, he was clearly instructed to keep his cool no matter what, but that ended up presenting as being lethargic and uninterested for a big chunk of the debate. And the third most telling thing is that if I'm his team, you know he's going to get a stop and frisk question, like a gender discrimination or mistreatment question. So you coach him and you have him give you 60, 75-second answers over and over again until he can do it in his sleep. And the fact that he did not have those answers at his fingertips lets me know categorically he was not properly prepared for this debate.
Well, they say they coached him on all of those issues. So
And that he had extensive debate prep
Exactly.
with real mock debates, with his aides playing all the roles of all the people.
Listen, this was a disaster for Bloomberg. Bloomberg went in as the Titanic, billion-dollar machine Titanic. Titanic, meet iceberg Elizabeth Warren. She took him to task in a way that I've never seen in a debate. She took it over. She prosecuted him. But the worst part about it is, for me, a lot of African Americans are placing great hope in Bloomberg. Despite the stop and frisk and all that sort of stuff, you're seeing people trying to move over there. And he just wasn't ready. He was tone deaf on issue after issue. And the reason why, he's not been in those living rooms. He hasn't been doing those town halls. He doesn't know attacking people for, I have too much money for TurboTax? This is a great answer? A lot of people watching use TurboTax. His answer on women was terrible. He got completely destroyed on the NDA question. His answer on stop and frisk was as bad as it could possibly be. And then he basically lied on his answer when it came to redlining. He, on every major thing that people who are looking for a champion just wanted to see some contrition and some professionalism, he let people down tonight. And he's got to go back to the woodshed and get it from his team and come back better next time.
Now that's an interesting point. They all are. But the last one, Andrew, let me come back to you. There's a difference, and you guys know this very well, between being prepped and accepting the preparation. Do you believe that Bloomberg doesn't know how to answer these questions or doesn't accept what his team wants the answers to be? There's a meaningful distinction.
There really is a distinction, Chris, and it's very apt because you can only be coached if you're willing to be coached. I mean, everyone who works for Bloomberg works for Bloomberg. So there's no one that could be like, hey, Mike, like, you have to, like, yeah, that was terrible. You have to do it again. We're going to videotape you and show it to you.
Did that
and
happen
then
with you?
not let him, yes, that happened to me. And so, and then you don't let the person leave the room. And the people who are working with me worked for me too, but, like, they knew that I was coachable. Like, if they were like, hey, Yang, like, that was not great. Here, we'll show it to you. Like, let's like, do it again. Then I'd be like, all right, let's do it again. And there were times I did not want to be there at all. But, like, in Mike's case, if he didn't want to be there, he's not going to be there. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no one on his team who can be like, that was terrible. This is going to potentially damage your campaign to a very, very high degree. And you need to not, and I know this is the case because I saw him on stage. Like, if you get the obvious question and you don't pivot to this memorized script that your team has hammered into you, then you just did not get prepared or you were not willing to prepare yourself.
He did, but he wasn't ready for the follow-up.
But I have to tell you something. Yeah.
parents used what came of Dr. King's dream.
Bernie Sanders is the big winner. She did have a great strike against Mike Bloomberg where he was really flustered about NDAs, non-disclosure agreements.
So, Mr. Mayor, are you willing to release all of those women from those non-disclosure agreements so we can hear their side of the story?
We have a very few non-disclosure agreements.
How many is
Let me
that?
finish.
How many is that?
None of them accuse me of doing anything other than maybe they didn't like the joke I told. And let me put, there's agreements between two parties that wanted to keep it quiet, and that's up to them. They signed those agreements, and we'll live with it. I said we're not going to get to end these agreements because they were made consensually, and they have every right to expect that they will stay private.
If they want to release it, they should be able to release themselves.
Can I add a word to
Say
this?
yes.
I mean, you hear Joe Biden there at the end. He had a couple of moments, but then kind of regressed. He didn't really have a big night. He needed to tonight, and it was not that.
Did you sense some desperation from like the lower level candidates that maybe knowing that if they didn't perform well tonight, it could be curtains pretty much?
Yeah, I think that they sense that this race has changed. I mean, with the money that Bloomberg has put in, more than $400 million, and with the steam that Bernie Sanders has behind him, they had to change the dynamic. There was one moment at the end where Bloomberg kind of came back and said, we as a party, Democratic Party, cannot elect a socialist, but he didn't say socialist. Take a listen.
I can't think of a ways that would make it easier for Donald Trump to get reelected than listening to this conversation. It's ridiculous. We're not going to throw out capitalism. We tried that. Other countries tried that. It was called communism, and it just didn't work.
And Bernie Sanders eventually said, hey, listen, that's a cheap shot. It's not communism. It's democratic socialism. Bottom line here, again, to my first point, you know, that line, if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, will be used in some Trump ad. Absolutely. And I think that the most fascinating moment was at the end where they went down the row and said, what about a contested or open convention? And Bernie Sanders said the person with the most delegates should win, and all of the others said, well, the process should play out. Because guess what? Tonight meant that Bernie Sanders still has momentum. He still looks the same. He's still the same guy, and he's probably going to get the same delegates. And when you get to Milwaukee, he probably is going to have the plurality of the delegates, and it's going to be a big challenge for this party to figure out whether the Democratic Socialist will be their nominee.
It struck me as not surprising that some of the Democrats came out and were eager to punch away at Mike Bloomberg right off the bat. Mayor Pete seemed to take a little different approach, kind of to hit his central points and to say, all right, we're not going to let a guy buy it. We're not going to let a guy blow up the entire system.
I thought Pete Buttigieg actually had a strong night overall on the candidates who are not in the, you know, the big top tier as far as Bernie Sanders and Bloomberg. I think Buttigieg really had some striking moments against Amy Klobuchar, and that was to the detriment of Klobuchar. And I do think that he is very polished. He is very good at what he does about delivering it. But whether that is going to move the needle in this race, I think the race, Mike, after this debate is pretty much the same race that we saw going in, which is shocking, but I think it is.
And Elizabeth Warren came out swinging right away. We showed her on the non-disclosure agreements.
Third place, maybe better, maybe second out here. I think she's probably disappointed that she wasn't tougher in New Hampshire. Everybody said that she wasn't the fighter. She was the fighter tonight. I believe she hit every other single candidate. I don't know if she made her way to Biden. If not, it's only because she didn't think it was worth it. She hit every other candidate hard, really hard. And I think it was because she has to get her position back in the top tier. I also thought Buttigieg would not lay up on Klobuchar. He wouldn't lay up on the fact she didn't know the president of Mexico. He kept punching her weak spot, her wound, over and over again. It was the boxing match in which nobody pulled back and said, enough. And nobody clinched. Everybody kept fighting. I'll tell you, I think Trump probably likes the look of it. I'm not sure he's right. On first view, it looks awful and bloody. Everybody attack each other, circular firing squad, all those cliches. But maybe what we saw there was a lot of passion. And maybe that passion is going to get through. But there's only one candidate there who believes he's going to have the most delegates going into Milwaukee. And we know it was. He was the guy that said that person should be the winner. Everybody else said tonight, I will not have the most delegates. They all made it official. They were not going to give the win to the guy or the person with the most delegates. That was so telling tonight. Today, it was an acknowledgement that Bernie is the winner, not the winner so far in this whole fight. And he may be the winner all the way, and I think they think so.
By the way, I've been told, despite the fact that both men were wearing their microphones apparently on the stage, we do not have audio of the moment we referenced at the top of our coverage here.
And in all fairness, we shouldn't. It's the commercial break. They were having a conversation
with each other. It was after the debate, yeah.
I'm glad the audio doesn't exist, but we can ask them about it because it's quite a striking image of the two of them after this incredible one-on-one battle that was going on.
Katie Tur watched tonight at something of a viewing party with some voters out there in Las Vegas. Katie?
Hey there, Brian. This is the first majority-minority state, the first state where a large block of minority voters will
We
come to
watched the
electability.
Thunderdome that was the 2016 Republican primary. A lot of the same things were said about Trump. That people were hitting him left and right, and what worked and what didn't.
Oh, yeah.
He can't handle the questions.
I
he
said
can't
some
handle
of
it.
them, yeah.
And, you know, the idea of sleeping on a movement, I think, matters. But the Republican is a different party than Democrat. How do you think this type of fight plays for your people?
Yeah, the one thing I want to caution everybody who's watching this tonight, we are now coming up with a very brutal primary calendar coming up. So we're going to have Nevada, then we're going to have South Carolina, and 3 days later we have 14 states, including California, Texas, North Carolina, Virginia. Big states with lots of delegates. The one thing, maybe 6 to 8 million people watched the debate tonight. I don't know, but I can tell you this. Hundreds of millions of people have been seeing these Bloomberg ads.
Right.
They've been seeing Barack Obama. They've been hugging each other. They've seen that. I don't know what it is, but I can tell you his ground game, he has 2,200 staff. In Virginia, he has 100 staff. North Carolina, 200, 14 offices. I just caution everybody here with this calendar, the way it is coming up. A lot of people may not be watching tonight or turned out early. You just don't know what the ground game is.
Well, but the calendar coming up is good for Bernie Sanders. If you look at California, for example.
Bernie and someone else.
Bernie and
Someone with
someone
a lot
else.
of money.
And you know, if you have millions and millions of dollars and you could cut clips from this debate and you say, show the clip, you show the
Show the good clip.
show the good clip. Well, that's where it works, right? Show the good clip where he challenges Sanders on his electability. You can use that in an ad.
One clip.
That's all you need.
Isn't this interesting? Like, okay, so yes, here's what we know. You've got another billionaire who's running, who may wind up being Teflon. He just may be able to run over everybody, and these things may not matter that much. But from a party point of view, mainline Democrats are being squeezed out by Bernie and Bloomberg. Bernie is leading a bottom-up insurgency from the left, but he's not actually a Democrat. And then now you have this top-down incursion from the right, from Bloomberg, millions of people, billions of dollars. He's really not a Democrat either.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that there's a judgment that's going on with the American people that the mainline Democrats are something wrong. There's something defective. There's something that's not cutting the cheese. And so these outside forces are coming in, squeezing them out. And so Bernie versus Bloomberg, I think whatever happens tonight, what you're seeing is that there's a judgment on this party. And, you know, frankly, one of the people I have the most hope in is you, because you had a different set of ideas. But the people should be looking in the mirror in this party to figure out what is going on here, because really we should have other choices than just these two outsiders.
You know, we do have other choices than just those two outsiders. There were other people on the stage who had very good nights. I think Elizabeth Warren won this debate. I think she should be treated like the top tier candidate she is. I think Pete and Amy got a little bit too much into it with each other in order. Usually both of them come out doing really well in these debates. Amy's zinger is sort of, they zung back on her. It didn't work tonight. Whereas the mom humor is usually really, it's great for her.
I got annoyed.
She did. I mean, she has not made her concerns with Pete a secret. And I think tonight she finally got enough under his skin that he started going back at her, and that wasn't a great look for either of those candidates. I thought Biden had a pretty good night.
I did.
Just to go back to what you were saying, and I agree with you. That's kind of the point I was making about, you know, we said these things about Donald Trump in 2016. And one of the reasons why Donald Trump was so successful is because he had a movement behind him, and he is charismatic, and he you know, he picked at things that he saw out there, fear, stoked it, all of those things, but it worked. The question is, look, Michael Bloomberg, he doesn't have a movement behind him. He doesn't have, there's nobody who's, you know, going rah rah Michael Bloomberg, but what he does have is a foil in the White House. And what he does have is the argument that he did make for the one clip that he can put out there in his ad. You know, you don't have to love me. I'm not perfect, but I can beat this guy. I've got the dollars. I've got the experience. I can do this. And that might be enough.
What about Democrats wanting to fall in love? You know, what's that saying about Democrats?
That is a great
in 2020.
tease. That is a great tease. Is the proposition of basically I can win the bidding war that Bloomberg is going to make, is that a message that works for Democrats? Was tonight, what you saw on that stage, was that a step closer to winning for Democrats? We'll take that on right after this.
Party was simply not the case. And so there's a lot that people are beginning to learn. And the last point I'll make, Brian, is that I've been in the lead for the vast majority of the time. Understandably, the target's been on my back. I've been vetted 60 days from Wednesday, and I'm not complaining. Never complain, never explain.
Performance and your RO
shape. And what now is going to happen is Bernie's going to get vetted a way he never has been before. You saw Mike getting vetted in a way that he never.
Who look to the work of Dr. King forget that he did more work after 1965. We forget his Poor People's Campaign. We forget his conversations about who we